And welcome to Talktoberfest here on WBT. I am Brett Winterble alongside my very good friend right there, Vince Coakley. Vince, it's great to be here with you today.
Hey, same here. It's great to be here together this evening. I look forward to some great conversation.
Me too, for sure. I think it's such an interesting time for us to be gathered together here in this way, and to be spending time as the third installment of Talktoberfest. Right, we had, of course, Pete Callender and then Bo Thompson together. We had Brett Jensen, and of course our good friend Mark Garrison, and then it's Vince and Brett, and it is so great to be here with you. I think it's worth remarking on right up front that this is a time unlike any other time that we've ever lived through, and let's hope we never have to live through another time like this again. And let's hope we're at the end of sort of this new world we're living in. But I'd love to just get your thoughts relative to all the stuff that's going on out there in the world, from COVID to unrest to uncertainty and supply chain situations. Where are you at today here, Vince?
It's kind of interesting. I was just reflecting on this, in so many ways the past few days. If we think back to the very beginning of this, where we had the sense, okay, something's going to happen here. They started the lockdowns, and this starts to sweep across the country. And we had a sense of, really there was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know how long this was going to last. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, surely a year down the road, this is going to be over with. Life is going to return to normal. And whatever that looks like. But it feels to me very much like, and we can have another conversation about the Great Reset as to what the elites are probably trying to do with this time. But it feels very much like some significant changes are underway, and we wonder what's going to be on the other side. It's a time of great uncertainty. We've got inflation going on. We've got energy questions to consider. We've got supply chain issues. And then we've got the political landscape, which has its own degree of uncertainty. Not just, we're seeing what's happening on the liberal side, on the Democrat side, as they try to sort through whatever things they're going to sort through, for instance, to get this legislation passed for infrastructure, for instance. Right. Now, the other part of that is on the Republican side. What's that landscape going to look like even over the next year? Because now I think we're seeing the early stages set for, I think, another level of civil war within the Republican Party, the pro-Trump versus the not pro-Trump forces. And I think that's something that's set to develop in the next year or so. So we've got a lot of moving parts here that I think a lot of people, I just think I think the word I think I would use to describe everything is unsettled.
Yes.
I really think that characterizes the times that we're in right now, Brett.
I think you're spot on in terms of the unsettled nature of the way things are happening out here. I want to welcome folks as they begin to come in here to join us here at Talktoberfest, the third installment of this terrific event that has been put on by WBT. And if you have a comment, you certainly have an opportunity to comment, ask us questions, weigh in as we discuss all these big issues. But I want to go back to something about this. The Great Reset, I find to be an endlessly fascinating topic. But I want to go back to the beginning, Vince, because this was something that was remarkable. Like so much, there was a tremendous reservoir of goodwill early on, right? 15 days or 14 days to flatten the curve and all that sort of stuff. And really, even the lockdowns, the mandates, people were willing to put up with that, the social distancing, the masking within reason, I think, as we're talking about that March and April and May of 2020. But it seemed that as we took a step forward in goodwill, the walls closed in a little more. And now we are all stuck quite literally between a rock and a hard place. They have taken a lot of advantage of us and our goodwill. And my fear, sincerely, is that we're going to have a much, much, much more cynical culture moving forward. Typically Americans, we've been a rebellious sort, but when the what hits the fan, we get together. 9/11, Katrina, things like that. I have a feeling we're going to be in a much more cynical place moving forward, Vince.
I have to agree with you on this, and it's kind of interesting because one of the things I brought up on the program this morning, because I'm very concerned about this, particularly on the Republican side. One of the words that stands out in my mind, and I see people, in fact, I've known people over the years, over the past few years, as they've watched Republican politics and engaged in Republican politics, the word that has disturbed me is futility, because I wonder if there's a point where people just feel like there is nothing that they can do. And so to disengage is really the only thing that they can possibly do that's going to make sense for them. It's eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Right.
And I don't want to think that that's where we're going, but I'm concerned that if people don't have some ray of hope, whatever that is, that's where this goes, where people just disengage. They get tired of the political bickering, and they just have this sense of hopelessness begins to set in. And I think that's what I would be most concerned about right now.
One of the things that I admire so much about your program, about you here on WBT, is the fact that between WORD and then here on WBT, you are a man unashamedly a man of faith. You are somebody who believes in God, and you understand the power of that salvation message. You oftentimes speak about prayer and praying for our country, praying for the predicament that we're in the world today. But here's what I think is so interesting. We watched for the very first time, and I would argue maybe in the history of the Republic, we watched a full frontal assault on communities of faith. It was naked, and it was widespread, and it was disturbing in the extreme, because at a time when I think people needed to believe in a higher power, God, something that makes them feel outside themselves. We watched a full attack, and it's not lost on me that this virus, which emanates in China, which is so avowedly anti-faith, anti-Christian, anti-religion of anything but the Chinese Communist Party, that we had handmaidens right here in this country, handmaids and handmaidens, helping to try to separate us and make us feel incredibly bleak.
You're absolutely right, and Brett, I want to before we continue that conversation, I just want to do a little shout out to some of the people who are
sure.
taking the time to send comments now. I want to encourage you to send your comments. Hey, Vince and Brett, thanks for what you both do. Roger, we appreciate you. Thank you for the fact that you are connecting with us. Yeah. Evening, Brett and Vince. Thanks for the additional content. Kevin, we appreciate you as well. One of the things that, one of the things I love about you, Brett, is the fact that you are clearly a person well researched, and I love how you also bring a dissection to things, and also a sensibility of an understanding of our Constitution, our foundational values, and these are the kind of building blocks. And I very much view you, even though the funny thing is we have not connected very much, and probably spent more time tonight together already yes. In this kind of context than we have before. It's true. But it's kind of neat that this is an opportunity where we're really on the same page in the sense of our connectedness about our values and what we'd like to see for the future, what we'd like to build yeah. into people. And yes, to go to your point about the assault, yes, the goal is to bring people to a place that only government can help them. The elites want to knock all the other foundations. They want to destroy the family, the nuclear family. They want to redefine the family. They want to knock out any competition. It's kind of funny, and I'm saying funny, not in a good way. Yeah. But one of the things that the Lord Himself says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And that's very much what big government says. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And this is very much the mindset of the elites. There is to be no other competing force for determining what is absolute. I talk about tyranny all the time on the program. And one of the things, and dogma, and we've been watching this with Dr. Anthony Fauci and others, what they say is the gospel truth. And if you don't believe them, if you don't trust them, then you're anti-science.
Right.
It's the same thing with the movement to whatever they're calling it now, the focus on the environment and trying to save the earth. And somehow, if you don't believe that the earth is in danger, then you are a denier. So all of these things, in the truth of the matter is, they're all using religious language, Brett.
Absolutely.
This is deeply religious.
That's right.
Deeply religious.
That's right.
Except we're bowing down rather than an altar of an invisible God who has proven himself throughout creation. It is a visible expression of human beings at seats of power. And they're the ones who are basically saying, we're at the top. You listen to us and you dare not defy us.
And
in fact, you better not even ask questions.
That's right. Absolutely right. And isn't it interesting? Like all the religions we have seen, the religion of government, let's assume this is the religion of government. You have sacramentals, right? You have the sacramental things instead of a crucifix or a Star of David or a six-pointed star or any of that. You have the mask. You have the virtue signaling. You have those sorts of things that outwardly show the world that you are a part of this, right? Whatever this is. In addition, you have the apocalyptic tale, right? What's different between the religion of government and the religion of a traditional faith is that there's a redemptive component to a religious faith. There's a way to come back from that dark place. This is all fire and brimstone. I mean, I believe after COP26 coming up here in a couple of weeks, and how ironic it's going to be held on like Halloween, I believe that we're going to be back, and as part of the Green New Deal, we will have to throw 4 virgins a month into a volcano to satiate the angry climate god. I mean, this is where we're going, Vince.
You're absolutely right, Brett. You're absolutely right. And what it comes down to at some point, and here's one of the things I've been thinking about, the whole purpose behind the way our government was set up was for the leadership. The whole purpose of the Constitution being and our system of government set up the way it is was so that the people in power, in leadership, would be in fear of people. And they have successfully turned this entire thing on its head.
Right.
So now we're afraid of them. And they continue. It doesn't stop. It's not even a static thing, Brett. They're continuing to turn the screws. You need to be in fear here and there. And, we've talked about the banking thing right now, for instance, how they're trying to, in this legislation, how they're trying to monitor bank accounts. And we're supposed to be relieved that, we've moved it now from $600 up to $10,000. Well, it doesn't matter what the threshold is. It's the fact that you are still monitoring people's bank accounts, which is frankly none of your freaking business. Who would have ever thought that this would be normal part of conversation and a normal function of government, for government to be monitoring the internal affairs of individuals and their accounts and their business affairs? It's crazy, isn't it?
I think we should demand the bringing of banking records to the polling place as identification. That's you'll bring the banking records with you. You'll sign in. You'll get to vote, and they'll do an audit right there on the spot. And after you cast your vote, you'll be handed a bill for what you owe, according to Joe Biden. Will be there with the green eye shade and the garters on his sleeves, going, "Okay, yo, it's $3.75. Go ahead."
With his ice cream.
Hey, we you know what, Vince? We should shout out Pete Callender's in here hanging out with us. I mean, we're so happy because people. I'm going to take it behind the curtain here for a quick second. I know Pete won't mind. I know you won't mind. We really all like each other. Like, we actually all like working together and talking to each other. It's why we have so many like crossovers on the shows. And that's really a phenomenal thing. And I'm really happy that Pete is doing such a great job in the spot that Rush had been holding all those years, and he's doing a terrific job coordinating and communicating with the audience. And he doesn't have a stronger leader than you, my friend. I mean, you just dynamite, Vince. And
Thank you. Kind of you to say.
I got to tell you, I want to say something about you too. And this is not mutual admiration, Heidi, but you don't suffer fools gladly on your show. When you get knuckleheads, you go right at them, Vince.
Right for the, and it's kind of a paradox. You know this, Brett, because
Sure.
I try, and I'm a work in progress in the sense that I very much try to be gentle and gracious toward people, and it just blows my mind that even in the midst of that, there are people that are just determined, absolutely determined to push the buttons.
That's it.
And and double down on insanity. Again, it's but overall I enjoy engaging with people, and that's the reason I continue to do what I do, as you do, Brett.
Oh yeah, like we were saying this morning as we were kind of coordinating and connecting, the fact of the matter is it beats working, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. There are days I feel like we should come in with a bank robber's mask to take our paychecks.
Hey, maybe you're Mr. Big Bucks there. So
shh, Biden's watching. Now they're going to come to my house and go through my secret bank account.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Some great comments coming in here, and I want to encourage folks to join in the comments. We'll be reading your stuff, and if you got questions, certainly fly them in as well. Kathy Morris says, "Don't get me started to use a Lowe's credit card. I need to give them my driver's license for the credit, and then again when I use the credit, but I don't need it to vote." I mean, very, very wise words here from Kathy.
Yep.
It's a remarkable situation. Mary Banny Murray says they started with $600 to scare us so that when they raise the amount, Vince, we will feel relieved instead of being outraged by any amount.
Yep. That's really good.
I mean, this is remarkable. Let me ask you a hypothetical. It's based on a fact, but it's also part of a hypothetical question for you. We have 2022 coming up here right around the corner. Things are going to jump off once we get to the holidays, once we get to New Year's, and then we're into a new year. As you ran for office and you had a specific mission in running for office, if you're an average citizen, to the extent that there is an average citizen, would you have fear of running for office today? Would you have to think really hard and pray really hard about it? Is it too toxic of an environment to be able to make a change, make a difference?
How dare you ask me that question, Brett? Boy, I'm afraid to answer that question for a variety of reasons.
I got you.
I'm going to give you a very honest answer to that question, because I'm at the point where I think I have watched people just the last few years, and I have to tell you, it's not just the Democrats that scare me. It's the Republicans that scare me. And here's what I mean by that. Years ago, when I was running for office, and the people I was, quote, running with, in terms of when I say running with, I'm talking about, being involved in activism, that kind of thing.
Right.
I had a sense we were all kind of grounded in the Constitution and first principles. We wanted to see restoration. We wanted to see limited government. We wanted to see somebody who's going to come in with a wrecking ball.
Right.
And, just start taking down big government. And I've got to be honest with you, Brett, I don't hear that anymore. I think this is just my feeling. Now, people can correct me if I'm wrong. My feeling is that I think too many Republicans are comfortable with big government as long as their people are running it. I'm not sure. I think ideologically, I'm kind of concerned that we've capitulated. We've lost our way. And so that's the thing that concerns me. So the idea of even running, I'm thinking to myself, who's going to support me? who's going to even identify with the things that I'm talking about? Because that's not the major conversation right now.
Right.
And we're talking about so many things, and yet we're not talking about the most important thing, which is to disassemble big government.
Right.
Yeah, does that
Right.
make sense to you? I mean,
Yeah.
tell me
It
if
does.
I'm crazy here. Do you I feel like we've been taken down all these rabbit trails,
Mhm.
dare I say it, by politicians and even talk radio. We're
Sure.
chasing all of these silly ancillary things, conspiracy theories, and I think we've lost our way. So I don't even know what my constituency would be if I ran. I mean,
Mhm.
that's my honest answer. Tell me how crazy I am, Brett.
Well, no, I think you make total sense, because I think the paradigm, and I don't mean to sound like a poli sci class here, I think the paradigm has shifted, and this is what I mean by this.
Yes.
Gone is a strategic vision, right?
Yes.
Ronald Reagan's A Time for Choosing.
Yes.
I'll even be bipartisan here. Okay, I'm going to be bipartisan. Ronald Reagan's A Time for Choosing. Barry Goldwater's very famous speech. Dwight Eisenhower's warning of the military-industrial complex. And then I'll take it here. I'll take it to 1984 Democratic Convention and Mario Cuomo's misinterpretation, but nevertheless, I'll defer to him because he was laying out a vision that Ronald Reagan was the second coming of Attila the Hun to sack Rome, and Mario Cuomo wanted the shining city on the hill, completely never having, I guess, read St. Augustine. But I look at this and I say that was a strategic vision. Ronald Reagan, we win, the Soviets lose. Right, there was a thing there, but what happened was, do you have siblings, Vince?
I do.
Do you have any siblings? Okay,
2 older sisters.
2 older sisters. So you know the game you played. I bet everybody in this audience played this game. You know the game you play where the one kid pushes on the door and somebody tries to hold the door shut, and then you figure out that you're going to get even with your brother or sister and jump out of the way, and they're going to push all the way through the door and fall down. You know this game that people play, little kids. That's what happened with the end of the Cold War. We didn't have to have a strategic vision. Bill Clinton said we had a peace dividend, right? And so I think people don't think strategically anymore. They think the next news cycle, the next appearance. And I love the conservatives. I mean, I'm a conservative guy. I'm a pro-life conservative. I think they think, how can I get on the show tomorrow? Or how can I get on the show tonight? How can I trigger MSNBC? How can I make Cuomo go
right
crazy?
on it, Brett. You've hit it on the head.
Instead of what you're saying, right? Because here's what I would say. If I were in DC right now, I would say, as a Republican, you want to collect massive tax revenues, go to a fair tax. Fair tax. Sales tax on everything. You buy a jumbo jet, you're going to pay $200 million in taxes, whatever it is. The drug dealer has to pay it. The prostitute has to pay it. The crooked politician has to pay it because they buy stuff. Right now, we're collecting all this. You'd have 1.7 million who crossed the border buying clothing and apparel and things like that, suddenly paying taxes. Everybody's paying. Nobody will float that because the IRS is an institution and accountants love fighting them because it's billable hours. There's no strategic thinking any longer. And I think after somebody who I think overthought everything to the point of paralysis in Barack Obama, I think that's why people looked at Donald Trump and said, we need a guy that's going to come here and burn everything down. And we're going to show him. He was very effective. The economy was great. Got sidelined with the Adam Schiff stuff and, of course, COVID. But there isn't a strategic thinker out there. We're too driven by polls on a minute-by-minute basis.
Yes. And I've got to ask you this question because I think this is really important. And one of the things that you would certainly know better than anybody else, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
We also benefited from the unifying voice of Rush.
Yeah.
Who was, and when I think back to going through my early formative years as a teenager in my 20s, it was Rush Limbaugh, it was Mark Levin helping these were idea people.
Right.
And I think we've lost that somewhere where, if it's not coming from talk radio anymore, we've lost these. I mean, at least, I'm thinking from standpoint of Rush.
Yeah.
now everything has, it's become, I don't know how else to say it. It's become entertainment. It's
Yeah.
shifted to entertainment. How can we take down the liberals today?
Yeah.
And, it's entertaining, it's fun, and, we have those gotcha moments.
Right.
But
Right.
in terms of the building blocks and the kinds of things that were really helpful in my formative years, can you speak to that, Brett?
Yeah.
And how that, because I know that's had a tremendous impact on you. I see it and hear it in what you do.
Rush was he was a larger than life character and was a smaller than giant human. Okay, it's
That's good.
he
I
was
love
a
that.
he was a I know people are going to say you're out of your mind, Winterble. He was a guy from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, whose father and grandfather and I think great grandfather, they were lawyers. That's what they did for a living.
Right.
And he was the first one to say, I'm going to go do radio. I mean, you may as well say, you're going to paint your head purple and run down the street and ask for quarters. I mean, I don't, and they said, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. And he pursued his dream. And that was the thing that was always remarkable. There'd be times I'd be talking to him, face to face, person to person. We'd be sitting in his office and we'd be talking about issues of the day and a take on a story. And what do you think of this and that? And then what would happen is your brain, you'd go, I'm talking to Rush Limbaugh. I'm in Rush Limbaugh's office. And you'd start to get like nervous. Like you'd be like, this is Rush. Like this is really freaky and crazy. I'm a guy who grew up in El Paso, Texas, the tiny corner of Texas, went to college in Boston, moved to New York. I lived in a tiny apartment in the Bronx. And I answered an ad in the New York Times of all things to go over to work at his operation, EFM Media, Edward F. McLaughlin Media. And what had happened was I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to law school. And my mom was a legal secretary. And she said to me, don't be a lawyer. She said, don't be a lawyer. She said, nobody's ever happy when you meet a lawyer. Like you see him at a party, nobody's happy when you meet a lawyer. She goes, go act, go do comedy, go do talk radio, go be a talk show host. Now, it was funny because it was sort of the inverse of Rush because his family was like, don't you dare be a talk show host, go be a lawyer. My mom's like, are you kidding me? It's a drag. Don't do it. So what happened was I had gone and taken a job at a big law firm in downtown New York. And I was working like 95 hours a week as a paralegal. And the guy who ran the paralegal office there came over to me and he said, okay, so where are you going to go to law school? And I'm like, I hadn't really thought about it. I'm just still kind of learning my way. He's like, no, you got to take the LSAT. We got to rotate you out. That's what we do here. Da, 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 da. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't, like, it's too hard. It's too much stress. And I saw the ad in the New York Times for a media management company that needed a sales assistant. And I submitted over there. They reached out to me. I went in for an interview and it was Rush. It was Rush's syndication company and it was small. It was a principal and two partners, one affiliate clearance guy, and a couple of back office people. And so I was going to be an assistant to his partner who owned the show before it went to premiere. And his name was Stuart Crane. And so he hired me and it was incredible. I would get to go over to the studio. I'd get to do my thing over there and then come back to the office. And whenever I would go to the studio, I went to his TV show a couple of times, went to his broadcast studio with James, with Snerdley and Kit and Mike and all them. And I'd be like, I want to go back. I want to be over there. I want to be over there. Well, long story short, Premiere bought him out and I transferred to Los Angeles. The person who was screening went out on maternity leave and didn't want to come back. And they called me out at Premiere and said, hey, do you want to come in and screen for Rush? And that was like 99. I got the job in 95, went to LA in 98, came back in 99, proposed to my now wife, and then said, I'll see you at the wedding in 4 months. I got to go back and work for Rush, which is what happened. I mean, but Rush was the guy who made everybody smarter around him. Like he wasn't an ego guy. He was a regular guy and he was an idea guy. He was a big idea guy. He's entertaining. He's compelling. He loved this country like nobody's business. He did a lot for charity that nobody ever knew about, that we saw, but that nobody ever talked about. And sitting there with him and seeing him do that stuff was incredible. It was an incredible journey I got to take. But the thing I took away from him was chase your dream. My mom told me to chase my dream. He told every day on the radio, chase your dream. But you have to understand that there's no guarantee.
Right.
You're not guaranteed the cookie at the end of the rainbow, man. You're going to fall flat on your face. You might get ripped off with the disc gratificator in your car, whatever it is, But nobody had more fun than him. I mean, nobody had more fun. He loved it. The 3 hours that he was on the air, it was incredible. And so it was the highlight of my life professionally. Before I went out and I started doing talk radio and started to grow and to build. But he was an incredibly supportive person. We kept in touch over the years. The team is very tight. And, he was just really happy to see me continue to go and do what I was doing.
That's pretty awesome. And
I didn't mean to filibuster. I'm sorry.
No, that's not a filibuster at all. I love that's some wonderful color that you provided. And again, I'm a big person who believes in impartation, because that's exactly what that is. It's someone who is investing their life into yours.
Yes.
And they've taken something of themselves and they've put that into you. And
Yep.
It very much shows. It comes out in who you are and what you do, Brett. And
I appreciate that.
we very much appreciate that. We're the beneficiaries of that. And that's also a good question at this point too, because I don't want all of this to be kind of dark as I may have started
Yeah,
off.
of course.
I take the responsibility or the blame for that at the very beginning. How do we inspire people, Brett? How do we encourage people? Because I'd love for people to go out and run for school board, to run for state house, state senate, to run for city council, run for Congress, run for Senate. We need desperately regular people to go out and engage. That's the wisdom we need. And I make this joke all the time. It's kind of a revision of what William F. Buckley said. And I've made the argument that I think that I could go out and find very easily 435 random people.
Yeah.
And I think they would do a better job than what we've got in Washington right now. I think you can just pick people off the street. And I think 435 random people would not come up with the nonsense that we have going on in Washington right now. I mean, I'm just, maybe I should say 535 and then throw in the executive branch with it. But how do we inspire people? How do we inspire hope, Brett, at this stage of history with all those things that we were talking about?
Well, I'll go back to the Rush thing for a quick second. You might hear him get tense. You might hear him get passionate, yell, pound the desk, that kind of stuff. But the thing he did was he laughed. We have to be of good cheer.
Yes.
You're not going to win.
The happy warrior.
The happy warrior. Antifa is they're not going to convert you by hitting you over the head with a stick. And you're not going to convince anybody by that either. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning with faith, right? Which is be joyous. You need to be joyous. If we really believe that all this turns out in the end the way it should turn out, right? That we are not lost, then who cares if you lose a race? Who cares if you're not able to convince somebody? What is the reason for your joy is the big question that we hear asked about, especially in scripture. So somebody ought to be able to look at us and say, but what are you so happy about? The world is falling apart. It's terrible. You got these people that walk around like Eeyore. You know what? All things being equal, I'll take America 2021 with all of its problems than I don't know, America 1692, Europe 1226. I mean, the phone, right? We can start a business tonight. You and I could come up with a t-shirt now, market it, and have money tomorrow. This is incredible. Like, what are the odds that we live here at this time? It's like trillions to one, right? And so I think the way we get people engaged is to talk to them. Whenever I go to Republican clubs and talk with groups, I don't see a lot of people that are bummed out or depressed. I do see that on college campuses with people who are just part of the fear porn and everything is terrible and we're all going to die. I see conservatives being, by and large, pretty upbeat people. I think a lot of it's because many of them are in business, and you have to kind of be looking forward rather than kind of just staring at the present. And so I think we got to win people over that way. All right, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question, Vince.
Uh-oh.
All right, here we go.
Can I plead the fifth?
You can plead the fifth, but I think you're going to want to. Here, Scott Vining with a really good comment here. Okay, so Scott Vining. To inspire, you need to ensure those taking the risk that we will support them if they fail. Failure is the fear that keeps people on our side away. The other always supports their own success or failure. That's an interesting thought.
Could you put that up on the screen again? I'd like to see that you need to ensure those taking the risk we will support. Oh, yes. Keep people on our side away. The other always supports their own success or failure. That's really good. That is very, very insightful. And, it goes to something, and I hope this is not in any way off-putting to people maybe outside of the Christian faith, for instance. And this is something that was actually new to me 12 years ago, probably. And I hope you'll see the relevance of this. It was someone had communicated a lot of what I've been focusing on the last 10, 12 years has been on issues of identity and relationship. And I remember the first time I heard someone explain this to me, they said they were talking about the baptism of Jesus. And they asked the question, at the baptism of Jesus, what great work or miracle had he done? And the answer is nothing. What was the declaration from heaven? This is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. Mm-hmm. That was a declaration over his son, not because of what he had done, because he hadn't done anything. It was because he found joy in that relationship and that identity. And it's the same thing for us, that as we accept our identity and we are, that's where that joy and that's where that encouragement comes from. And because you have it, guess what? You can then share that affirmation with other people. That's something that's wonderful because the world is crying out. We have a world of people crying out for affirmation. And they're crying out for help. What's the big struggle in our culture right now? I think it's identity. Mm-hmm. People don't have one.
That's right.
And they're trying, so they have to extort one out of somebody else. This is where you get into the gender nonsense. Call me they or it or them or all of it. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. People, I think people are crying out for affirmation and really crying out for love and encouragement. And I think as we, if we have something, then we share that and we communicate that. I think that's a game changer in our connection with people. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, it does.
Am I going the direction that you asked, or did I veer off somewhere?
No. I think
you're at Albuquerque.
I think you're right there. I think you're right there. There are a lot of empty people that feel empty inside. Yes. They don't have a burning passion that's going to drive whatever it is, painting, flowers, child rearing, whatever it is. And what I think is so interesting is that incumbent upon what we are as a country, all right, the founding fathers, warts and all, right, okay, because we know they're all demons now, and I know they're not, obviously, but incumbent upon this is the fact that this is not our country, right? So we're stewards of the country, right? We have it right now, okay? And you look back and you think the 17 and the 18-year-old that hit the beaches in Normandy for complete strangers, liberating Europe because the government told him to go over there and fight the Nazis, right? Comes back home, builds an amazing economy, probably comes back wounded, probably PTSD from the battlefields and things like that. But they understood the stewards of the generation, that we're stewards of the country. But we're not just stewards of the country, the institutions, we're stewards also of each other, right?
Oh, that's good. That's rich.
What did they do? So you think there were like poor people in 1778? Probably, right? Probably poor people. And there were probably really hard-hearted people who wouldn't give a person a piece of bread or whatever. But there were people who have always done charity.
Right.
Charity is written on the human heart. And, we have to remember, we have to reject that the country is evil intrinsically.
Yes.
Okay? We are one big family. The human family is one big family. We have Adolf Hitler and Osama bin Laden, and we have John the Baptist. We have a huge panoply of people. Some of them are absolutely horrible human beings who should not be walking around. But we're good people, and this is the fundamental failing with the message. What Vining said a second ago here. Bernie Sanders can run 100 times; he'll still have a constituency. Rick Perry can't remember the department that he wants to cut. He's cast out to Siberia. John Kerry has been doing the John Kerry Act since 1973. Joe Biden's been doing the Joe Biden Act since 1873. Okay, I mean, and so the thing is, they will carry them. Saint Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? I mean, my God, it's amazing. We will turn our back. Are you kidding? Sarah Palin to the wilderness. You lost. Except, isn't it funny, Vince? Ronald Reagan lost.
Yep.
He lost and gave a speech. He lost to Jerry Ford.
I know. Tell me about it.
And gave a speech that freaked everybody out in the arena going, we picked the wrong guy. We picked the wrong guy. I worked with Mike for a while, Mike Reagan in California, okay? And he tells the story, two great stories about Reagan. So Ronald Reagan was brought in to meet with Jerry Ford when Jerry Ford was running, right? And Jerry Ford offered Ronald Reagan a co-presidency. Did you know that? He said, we'll be co-presidents. You be my vice president, we'll be co-presidents. Reagan said, you know what? Go do it. You'll go take out Carter. You're fine. You're gonna be just terrific. Do what you got to do. Ronald Reagan didn't want to go down that road. He didn't want to go down that road and hitch his wagon to Jerry Ford. And we didn't cast him out. We didn't cast him out to the wilderness. And thank God we didn't. Think of all the talent we probably have shed by running them off.
Can I also add here, I think there's another important takeaway from the story that you just shared, Brett, and that's humility.
Yes.
To be able to, in loss, in defeat, to have the humility to support somebody else and then wait for another turn. And as history would have it, he gets that opportunity and has really, I think, the greatest presidency of certainly that portion of the 20th century. There's no doubt about that at all.
Right.
And it takes great character to be that person who says, you know what?
That's right.
I lost. And yet have a sense of being able to, a team player who's able to step back and say, you know what? This isn't my moment. But you know what? I'm going to help make this moment for this other person the best that it can possibly be.
That's right. And the second story, which fulfills an important part of this, because we tend to deify our political heroes. I mean, it's human nature. Ronald Reagan is running against Jimmy Carter and blows him out in the landslide, right? In 1980. Mike is there with the president to be, Governor Reagan at that point. And it's 5:00 in the afternoon. And the president to be is taking a shower. And the phone rings and it's Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter says, can I please talk to Governor Reagan? and they hand him the phone. He's there in a towel, he's getting out of the shower. He's wet, takes the phone, and he says, congratulations. I'm conceding right now. You won. Congratulations. You're the president-elect of the United States, sir. Good luck. And Reagan hangs up the phone. And you think, this is the guy who comes in, delaying the gratification, decides that he's going to continue to push through with an optimistic message, eventually takes down the Soviets. At the end of the day, he's just the guy that got the call in the shower that every one of us has ever gotten, except that he found out the job he was getting was the presidency.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
These are just people. All we have to do is win over more people, convince more people. We have so many shared experiences. We've had kids, we've lost loved ones, we've been sick. If we touch that commonality, I think that's like 99% of the fight. We have to just understand that, okay, you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, you're not a conservative, you're not a liberal. You are Sarah, you are Steve, you are Bob, you are Joe.
See, this is something that I think is so valuable. And, I'm Lord willing, I want to do more of this. This subject is also important to me, which is identification.
Absolutely.
Identifying, if I may bring another spiritual value into this. And again, I don't, these are not things that I came up with out of my own head. These are things, certainly things that have been shared with me over recent years.
Yeah.
But the first thing, in the new covenant, speaking of Christianity, the first act of God in this new covenant was not giving people a book.
Right.
It was his son coming and identifying as a human being. That was the first act before he ever opened his mouth.
Right.
And I think this, and I remember the first time somebody shared that with me like 10 years ago. And I was like, whoa, because I realized this is, and it impacts the way I deal with people all the time. I do a lot of informal counseling and mentoring with people. And it's entering into people where they are in their life experience. And once you're able to do that, you have a hearing. Once, and you've heard this before, once people know how much you care,
yep,
then they will listen to how much you know.
That's right.
And I think we get this backwards. We want, I'm going to tell people we need to tell people this, and this. No, the starting place is let them know you care. And then all of a sudden you've got people you never imagined listening to you and taking, here's a little interesting thing. And I'm deeply humbled by this. As I think back a few years ago, I grew up in a house where my dad, he despised Ronald Reagan, rest his soul. He would talk about that rat Reagan did this and that. And he talked about how the Republicans, all they were concerned about was big business. And, my dad passed away a couple of years ago. But here's the thing that, and I've shared this with the audience several years ago, my parents faithfully listened to my program every single day. And I remember it was about 3 or 4 years ago when my dad said to me, we changed our registration to Republican.
Wow.
And one of the reasons was, I knew they had been listening to the program every day. And again, I don't think it's because I'm some great orator or anything like that, but I think they saw and experienced what I was sharing, contrary to what they may have seen and experienced out there. Right. See, the thing is, we can overcome what's out there by what we do in our homes and in our neighborhoods, just by loving people. And when my dad shared that with me about changing registration, I thought I was going to fall over. I really did, after all the things he'd said about Republicans over the years. And, certainly the last president he voted for was Donald Trump. So it's intriguing to me because this gets back to where we've talked about hope. That's, It's
Yes.
loving people. And I tell people all the time, please do not see your neighbor, your Democrat neighbor. Do not look at them and see Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, because there's a good chance they have no idea what these morons believe. There's a
Right.
very strong chance. And if we give them the benefit of the doubt of respect and listen to them, and we might find that they're more open to our ideas than we ever imagined.
Yeah, it's very true. Rush was often said that if you survey people, if you just talk to people about things, whatever the things are, right, where you can ascertain where they are kind of on the ideological spectrum, he said people live very conservatively.
Yes.
Nobody's going to say, yes, I'm going to leave the door open. I want someone to just come in and sleep on my couch tonight. I don't know who's in my house. I mean, there are people who believe in border security. They believe you should have safe streets. They believe criminals should go to jail and then maybe be rehabilitated, depending on what they did. That people live conservatively. But I think the problem is you have the battle of the emoting people and the thinking people. Now, there are those people on both parties or both spectrums. Right. But by and large, the divide where you have where we're told that, and I say this all the time, we're told that the Constitution, right? The Constitution with specific words written on a parchment that you can read, that's a living, breathing document. But the climate has to be static. And the only way you can make that climate be better is if you send money to Washington, D.C. How does that, like, if you just went up to somebody in a supermarket parking lot and laid that idea out, the climate is really bad right now. We have got to send Joe Biden $7 trillion to fix the climate. What is he going to do with it? I'd rather spend $7 trillion on weather modification and figure out how to make it rain in the West.
Brilliant.
I mean, you know what? Hey, here's an idea. They hate pipelines, right? Like Keystone XL pipeline.
Yep.
Why, in this day and age, are we not able to put a network of pipelines across the country to take water where it is to water where it should go? We can't pipe. We can pipe oil. We can pipe natural gas. We can't take water from the Mississippi River and send it to Vegas. Did we lose a war? I mean, no, but see, there's no big ideas. There's just big programs. There's no big ideas. There's these big programs that people want to. We need $7 trillion for what? And we need zero-based budgeting in the departments to start.
And part of what's missing here, what you're describing, Brett, is imagination.
Yes.
That's desperately lacking.
Yep. Because if I get up in the morning or you get up in the morning and your mission is to make 7 people mad, well, what has that built? Nothing. I mean, it's a wasted day. I think that, like, this country does incredible stuff. There's a great piece I read. Ira Stoll, I think he put it in the New York Sun. You could find it online. He posted it yesterday. I read some of it on my show. Ira Stoll says, it was Ira Stoll. He says, Pete Buttigieg being absent tells us that the entire Department of Transportation could just be absent. That we built all the great achievements before 1966. We built the railroads. We built the St. Lawrence Seaway. We built the big tunnels in New York, the Golden Gate Bridge. None of that with the Department of Transportation. Why do we need a Department of Transportation? We never had one until 1966. So almost 200 years we went without the Department of Transportation. Why do we need that?
It's a good point. And in the same way, I heard just the other day, someone made reference to the idea. I don't know if this was a caller into the program, but someone made the point that we were pretty successful in winning wars when we had the War Department.
Yes.
Once we had the Defense Department.
Yes.
What's happened since then? And
yes.
I mean, this is 1984 on steroids, Brett. I mean, we have all
true.
of these names for things
It's
And
true.
and the idea is if we just give it a name, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. How many of these pieces of legislation, this is the Save Our Planet bill, they give
This,
it some sort of name like that,
I
and
love
just
that.
because they name it that, that's automatically gonna happen.
Right. Wait, the Save Our Planet bill, the SOP.
Oh my goodness, that's classic.
You did it. You did the Save Our Planet bill. It's the SOP. We need to pass the SOP now. Get the SOP mop.
Oh my goodness. It is
What?
way, way too much. You know, one of the things that I think is important, and I'm serious about that. Anybody listening right now, I hope you feel, and as you were describing this, Brett, how important it is for people to find their identity, their purpose, and walk in that
Yep.
fearlessly
Mhm.
and not be discouraged by naysayers or in my case, the voice that is the most dangerous voice is the internal one in me that's telling me I can't do this or whatever. Those things are the ones that have to be drowned out.
Oh yeah.
But the really, I'm communicating the idea of us.
Mhm.
I was saying this the other day, and I think it bears repeating today. My heart is to see a generation of leaders rise up
Mhm.
who are an elite force of leaders to engage in our communities, our
Mhm.
families, our local, state, federal, every layer of government, the social structure, the business structure,
Mhm.
leaders
Yep.
to walk in that identity.
Yep.
And what I said is this will be a group of leaders who are elite without being elitist.
Absolutely. 100% absolutely right. That's you're 100% spot on, Vince. Because what has been lost objectively, I mean, we're going like super metaphysical here, right? But but what has been lost really? What has been lost are, I think, are two or three key components. We have lost the ability to debate without having a fight.
Right.
And part of that goes to your identity point, because we have now gone to a place where um, Vince wants tax cuts. I'm just going to use you as an abstract person. So Vince wants tax cuts. Brett does not want tax cuts. So rather than you saying to me, yeah, but if we cut taxes, your income will go up 10%. And I say, well, no, it'll only go up 2%. And we go back and forth. You have now, and it's a cultural reality, you have now put on the armor of your argument. The argument is you now. So if I tell you you can't have tax cuts, well, you're ready to fight me in the street rather than debate it, discuss it. We've gone from debate to fighting, and it's nobody's fault because nobody teaches critical thinking and debating.
Oh, goodness.
Premise,
Yeah.
evidence, conclusion.
Yep.
Refutation, counter evidence, counter conclusion. Rebuttal, the decision, right? I mean, that doesn't exist anymore. Debating teams are such important things in high school, because it's not that you're necessarily going to go be a professional debater for your, but it trains your brain to think, to
Yes.
research, to look. So we have
Absolutely.
become our art. We've become our argument,
Yes.
right? We've become our argument. They say it in Hollywood, right? You have to be willing to slaughter your babies, and what they mean by that is you write a script, you give it to a studio, you sell it to a studio, then they're going to chop it up to pieces, or they're going to ask for revisions, and you get angry and how dare you edit my masterpiece?
It's
Well,
my
no,
baby.
my baby. You have to kill your babies. But here's the thing, though. That's only one component. You know what the second component is? Accepting new information. I hear that on your show, and I hear you catch buckets of hot lead from people where you're like, well, you know what? I happen to think that now this guy is probably not the way to go. And then they're like, you're an absolute filthy traitor. What's wrong with you? I mean, because I got new information. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, we can't be our arguments. We can't be your position. Like, you can support your position and you can work for your position, but your position is not you.
That's powerful.
And well, I think it's that's how you're going to get those elite thinkers. It is hard, man. It is hard to like say, okay, I'm going to talk to somebody I disagree with. I'm going to go somewhere where I might not be comfortable. I lived in LA. I knew every kind of person. Like, I knew people that they didn't even have labels for them. I mean, they were like space aliens. It's a funny thing. Can I tell you a quick anecdote that happened to me today?
Absolutely.
So nobody knows this. Nobody knows this story. This afternoon before my show, I did an interview with somebody on the West Coast, and it got into a conversation about Rush. They knew I had worked for him, and they were asking me questions. So you know what they started doing, Vince? They started reading quotes from Rush Limbaugh.
Oh boy.
And well, how can you support a guy that said this? And how can you support a guy that said that? And I was getting mad. Like I was getting like really like, like I was starting to seethe. And I thought about what he would do when he would get those calls. And I said to the guy, I go, what's context? Like, you're just reading me a sentence. Like, was it sarcastic? Was it mockery? And he's like, I don't know. I don't have it. I'm like, well, then why are you reading me these quotes? And he says, well, do you repudiate it? I'm like, no, I don't even know what it's from. Like, I don't know is it from a parody? Is it from, like, where did you get it? And so he won't tell me. And I go, did you print the Media Matters list out? Are you reading off the Media Matters list? And he goes, I got it all. I found it online. I go, are you reading Wikipedia? You can't do, what are you? I go, you're a lawyer. I need evidence. Where and when was that said? And I need to hear the audio too. Well, I can't go find that audio. And I'm like, you raised it. You raised the issue. He was furious. But that's where you just have to say, you know what I'm just going to take your thing and I'm going to move it around. I'm going to say to you that the very famous line, right? A text without a context is a pretext. And that's all you're trying to pull right now. And I don't want to do that. So what I did was he wanted to fight and I gave him a debate. So
that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome stuff. It's a great place for us to come to our conclusion. If you believe we've already consumed an hour here,
unbelievable.
But it's been a great time, and we absolutely appreciate the fact that you've joined us for Talktoberfest. Brett Winterble along with Vince Coakley, and we certainly encourage you to listen to our programs tomorrow, 10 to 11:45 for the Vince Coakley radio program. Mr. Winterble, Brett Winterble, on at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon on News Talk 1110 WBT, and be sure to check out the next episode of Talktoberfest next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. as we continue conversation here. We so appreciate each and every one of you who's joined us for this delightful hour.
Vince, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending time with me for the hour.
Hey, thank you very much. Absolutely enjoyed it. God bless all of you. Have yourselves a great night.